Good morning. My name is Kirsten, and I'm one of the elders here at Hollywood, for those of you who don't know me. Today, I'm actually coming to you from Vancouver, Washington, where I'm spending a little bit of time with my mom. And the rest of our family is back home in California. So you might be seeing me on my phone camera or on Zoom for different parts of this sermon. I don't have Bill with me, who normally takes his camera and tripod and perfectly gets everything put together to film our worship pieces. So this morning you get me in whatever form I can communicate to you with, and this Nat. I'm really excited that this Apocalypse series I get to share with you how I've seen God, like reminders of God, while I was watching the series Orange is the New Black, which, just for the sake of convenience and brevity, I'll refer to as Orange from here on out. The song that we just sang with RJ, Underwater, was sung by Danielle Brooks. That's the name of the actress who played the part of Tasty, who I will talk to you about later. But now I want to share with you a scene from the series that highlights the message of the song so well to start us off this morning. Let's watch together.
Lie down, Mary. It won't be long now.
Just like a blind man, I wandered alone. Worries and fears I claimed for my own. Then, like the blind man, that God gave back his sight. Praise the Lord. I saw the light. I saw the light. I saw. You should be in the center. You should be in the center. No more in darkness. No more at night. Now I'm so happy. No sorrow inside. Praise the Lord. I saw the light. Praise the Lord. I saw the light.
That scene was one of many others that would warm my heart as I watched the series. A very difficult series to watch at times. Themes of racism, rape, inequality, violence, mental health, a broken prison system with staff that both acted on behalf of and against its inmates, and so much more were addressed. Christopher welcomed you a few minutes ago and used a string of words to aptly describe this longest running and most watched Netflix series. Its 7th and final season was released on July 26, 2019, the summer before our pandemic year started. It's both comedy and drama, and it's based on Piper Chapman's, or by Piper Kerman's, 2010 memoir, Orange is the New Black, My Year in a Women's Prison, about her experiences at FCI Danbury, a minimum security federal prison. Let's take a look at what the series creator Genji Cohen had to say in an interview. You won't hear or see the interviewer or their questions, just Genji herself. Let's listen.
I When I read the book, I loved the characters. And there were so many stories to tell in that book. And there were characters who I don't think you could sell a series on, but Piper was the perfect entree into this world. You could take this yuppie white girl and follow her in, and through her as like a gateway drug, you can tell all these other stories as well. And I got really excited about that. We did a lot of research. We read a lot of books. We had a visit. We went to Chino, a women's facility in Chino with all the writers. And we went at first and we looked around and we're like, this isn't that bad. And within 10 or 15 minutes, we could not wait to get out of there. It was just like, you can't leave, and you're under the thumb of this bureaucracy, and it's oppressive, and it was not a place you wanted to be. But I was speaking with the assistant warden who had worked in a men's prison, and I said, what's the difference here? And he said, men are out for themselves and women are communal. They form families, they share. And I thought that was just a really interesting difference. I never set out to make Oz. It wasn't men's prison, it was women's prison. And there's a great history of shows about women's prison. And we wanted to just put our spin on it. Maybe viewers will be surprised by the tone of the show. It's not a dark, ominous women in prison thing. I think humor is a survival technique, and I think if you just did a straight drama about prison, it would become so oppressive. No one would want to be there. It would become oppressive to write. And I find everything funny, which gets me in trouble sometimes. So I think tonally, it's another hybrid. We can go for our dramatic moments and we can go for our comedic moments and not apologize and not have to conform to a specific form for that. I just want them talking. I want people to have discussions or fights or arguments or I just want people to talk about it and be invested. I want them to fall in love with these women. I love these women, even when they do horrible things. I want them to fall in love with the characters we've made and care about them. And by caring about them, start maybe thinking about broader issues and how what's happening to them reverberates. I'm proud to turn on the TV and see 100 different women on the screen of every age and every color and every race. I have not seen that before. And to be able to tell all their stories is a privilege and something that I've been surprised hasn't been out there before. And I feel really proud of that we put all these amazing ladies up there and get to tell their stories. They're criminals, but but they're amazing.
Genji's words and thoughts connected with the way I experienced the series, and I read those words after I'd watched it. Christopher invited me to watch Orange with him from beginning to end after he had already watched the entire thing himself. We had time, so I agreed. This seemed to be the year of watching challenging web series for us as a family, so why not? While Orange may not sound or might not seem like a God or a sermon kind of thing, it's not disconnected. This morning, my goal is not so much to present a final thesis or an idea to you, as it is more to just share with you what I observed, how it resonated with my faith, and to invite you to do some exploring and wondering if you're of your own, if you haven't already. It's easy for us to look at film, media, think it's just entertainment that can be labeled as good or bad. Those of us who call ourselves Christian can often get judgy about that and miss some deeper experiences in which we can wrestle with challenges and people and think about how to be God's friends in the world. I'm quite clear that Genji wasn't out to get us to believe something about God in her series. I mean, she and I aren't necessarily trying to do the same thing, yet we both care about people. I do believe that film, in this case, a long web series, can create space for us to look at other people in new ways and maybe even feel motivated to do something about the world that we find ourselves in and the injustices that we find in it, or have a conversation with someone else. I'd like to share with you one question posed by an audience member to Taylor Schindling, who played the role of Piper Chapman, and what she said in response.
You touched upon this a little bit in your question, but I was just wondering if any of you could address it a little bit more in terms of what you've learned in the show about the criminal justice system, and because I feel like in watching this show as a viewer, you learn to see quote unquote criminals not as criminals anymore, and you learn to empathize with them and see them as humans. But I don't think the rest of the world is at that point yet, or the rest of this country is at that point. So I was wondering if anyone could address what you've kind of learned.
I think you touched on something that's really, really beautiful. And what I've found... Did you really just say that? You're totally okay. I love it. You're totally okay.
I'm like so flattered.
I'm so happy to be talking with you. You're so okay. Like we can totally just chill and talk. It's okay. Because like what you're saying is so on point. That one of the things that's happening in our criminal justice system today is that we're punishing people who need to be treated.
Right.
And just like Natasha was talking about, it's 85% of women that are incarcerated are there based on mental health issues, addiction issues, domestic violence issues, property crimes that have nothing, they're completely nonviolent. And so we're punishing people who need treatment, who have untreated trauma, who are suffering desperately, and I think Kate sort of spoke about that. And what I love about the show is that we're kind of blowing that open a little bit and saying that we're punishing the wrong people. We're punishing people that are really, really sick and really need help, and not even sick in many. I'm speaking more about addiction, but broken and need help. But it's a great point.
Taylor's words reminded me that actors and actresses aren't simply mannequins projecting whatever image they're told to on screen. They can be invested in the stories and the themes in those stories that they are a part of. Again, something I wouldn't know unless I took time to listen and observe. So earlier, Christopher mentioned Tiffany Doggett, also known as Pensatucky. I could not stand her. She irked me. She seemed to believe that it was her mission to bring people to Jesus, but at the same time, she pushed them away. I preferred not to watch her or listen to her. Take a look at this scene.
The first one was a spiritual rapture. And the second one coming is a physical one.
Ah, I see.
Okay?
Got it.
And you're not invited because they don't allow gay people on their rapture bus.
There's a bus? Are all the seats already taken by Appalachian Methods?
Oh man, you're just gonna get it, Ross, aren't you? Do we have to go back to the dryer?
Pensatucky's story does not end there. And sorry, there's going to be a few spoilers this morning. I'll do my best not to destroy your potential viewing of this series for yourself. I really didn't anticipate that I would come to love Pensatucky, and that came through an understanding of her backstory of abuse and mistreatment. I cheered for her when she chose to step away from a gaslighting prison guard who physically mistreated her while acting like he loved her, and walked into an understanding of her own value and self-worth. Watch with me the scene in which fellow inmate Suzanne coaches her in a study session before she took her GED. Suzanne herself suffered from mental illness. One broken person helping another. Watch.
Can't believe this test is in an hour. I'm so gonna fail this. Thanks, Travis Kimball. You were right.
Who's Travis Kimball?
Oh, he was a guy in 10th grade that always said, "You're dumb as a dog."
You're not dumb. You just got a special brain, like me. I know that this might be hard for you to believe, but when I was in school, people used to call me names too.
Really?
Yeah, I know. But Mommy said, I can't listen to the people who know the least about me. I gotta listen to the people who know me the most. And I know you pretty well, right?
Yeah.
Better than anyone in this prison? Yeah. And better than the whole world, maybe?
Yeah.
Then, as the world Tiffany Doggett expert, I say Travis Kimball doesn't know what the he is talking about.
Yeah, married his aunt.
I think you're smart. And I think you're gonna pass this test. When I had a big test, Mommy would say I could have all the pineapple juice that I wanted after.
Why? Pineapple juice tastes like farts.
Disagree. What was the reward you liked when you were a kid?
If I was really calm and I was quiet and my mom had a man friend over, I would get breakfast for dinner.
Oh, breakfast for dinner? It's done.
How are we gonna do
It's done. Now, where was the first of the 13 colonies located?
I loved that moment so much. There were so many bad words exchanged in that conversation that most well-spoken Christians would shy away from. But those words cannot mask the beautiful exchange occurring between Suzanne and Pennsatucky. Something to think about. The other character I wanted to expose you to was Tasha Jefferson, who's also known as Tasty. She was born to two 15-year-old kids who gave her up for adoption. Tasty became a ward of a very broken foster system and eventually landed in the home of a woman who ran a drug trafficking business. All of her children helped in that business. Tasty was smart, funny, brilliant, angry, depressed, and passionate. She experienced racism in a prison system that cared for her no more than the foster care system did. Her brown skin put her in a position to be accused of murdering a prison staff member who actually had been murdered by other white prison staff. It felt like Tasty could never get a break, but with the help of one prison warden who, despite his flaws, truly cared about the women he served, she found a sense of purpose when fellow inmate and friend Tasha Washington was murdered by a prison guard. Watch with me this scene when she speaks out against prison inequalities and injustices during the release of a famous white woman who had gotten special treatment in jail.
Judy King! Judy King, are you a Muslim now? Judy King! Are you a Muslim now? Judy King, are you?
You want me to talk first or make an introduction?
No, I'll start. Did they hurt you at all?
Good morning. My name is Tasha Jefferson, and I'm an inmate here at Litchfield. 2 days ago, our friend and fellow inmate, Tasha Washington, was murdered by a prison guard. Tasha Washington. And I'm saying her name again because it can't ever be said enough. Now, as you can see, Judy King ain't injured. And she ain't a hostage. And she has a statement that she'd like to make at this time.
And good morning, my fellow Americans. This prison has put me through unimaginable suffering. And I'm not a victim of this riot.
She will not. She is not gonna be making a statement. Sorry. She will not be speaking for us because Judy King can't speak for the inmates of this prison. She was kept separate from us, held in a private room with better treatment and a seltzer maker. And moments after our friend, Tasha Washington, was murdered by a guard for doing nothing wrong, Judy King was packing her bags to go home on early release because she's rich and white and powerful. Now, our fight is not with Judy King. Our fight is with a system that don't give a damn about poor people and brown people and poor brown people. Our fight is with the folks who hold our demands in their hands. Which you people need to read, by the way, and stop watching this fool coming out of here online and get a hold of our demand list, because those demands are fair and necessary and show that we intend to keep this demonstration peaceful and focused on change. Now, Judy King is free to leave. She's not a hostage and you can have her back. Judy, get the hell out of here.
Judy King, are you all right? Judy, were you treated well? Were you treated?
If you've ever thought you couldn't do something before, couldn't speak for someone, I hope that Tasty inspires you. She displays one way to love fellow humans, to speak truth to the powers that don't treat all humans with dignity and respect. So that's what I wanted to share with you from the series itself. 7 seasons is a lot of material, and it's full of many stories of women who do and don't belong in jail. Women who have the capacity to both hurt and care for each other. Women who are fighting for something better when they can, despite all the works and the systems that are against them. Just when you think you understand that this person is bad or this person is good, they do something that makes you reevaluate. Maybe nobody's on any particular side of the bad or good fence. We're all this jumbled heap of stuff. And sometimes we land on the right side and sometimes things don't go so well. As I watched the fictional characters on screen, I thought about the many humans that they represented and wondered how God could even find them, and if they could even find God. In a place where everything and everyone seems to be against you at times. I remember hearing a message while I was growing up. I don't remember who said it. It wasn't my parents, but I heard it somewhere. That if you go into the movie theater, God's angels won't follow you inside. So if God's angels won't go inside a theater, why would they or God go inside of a prison or other places we humans call bad and do our best to stay away from? Pastor Brandon shared a text with those of us on the worship committee as we prepared for this year's Apocalypse series, Acts 17:27. It says that they should seek God in the hope that they might feel their way toward him and find him. Yet he's actually not far from each one of us. This verse displays the way it must be to find God sometimes, to feel our way toward him. I would imagine it's like playing Marco Polo in a pool, which is kind of like a tag game in the water. You know, one person is it, their eyes are closed, they yell Marco, everybody else yells Polo, and it has to find their way to somebody close enough so they could tag them, and then that person is it. I imagine at times their target must feel so far away, even though they're just outside of reach, or maybe within reach. I think finding God can feel like that sometimes. There's so much clouding our view of God, yet she's there. I guess then that maybe God does enter prison or other bad places, so I can find him where I'm at, even if it's a bad place. I'd like you to read together with me a larger portion of Acts 17, verses 17 through 28, and we'll project those words on the screen for you. While Paul was waiting for them in Athens, he was greatly distressed to see that the city was full of idols. So he reasoned in the synagogue with both Jews and God-fearing Greeks, as well as in the marketplace, day by day, with those who happened to be there. A group of Epicurean and Stoic philosophers began to debate with him. Some of them asked, "What is this babbler trying to say?" Others remarked, "He seems to be advocating foreign gods." They say this because Paul was preaching the good news about Jesus and the resurrection. Then they took him and brought him to a meeting of the Areopagus, where they said to him, "May we know what this new teaching is that you are presenting? You are bringing some strange ideas to our ears, and we would like to know what it is or what they mean." All the Athenians and the foreigners who lived there spent their time doing nothing but talking about and listening to the latest ideas. Paul then stood up in the meeting of the Areopagus and said, People of Athens, I see that in every way you are very religious. For as I walked around and looked carefully at your objects of worship, I even found an altar with this inscription, to an unknown God. So you are ignorant of the very thing you worship, and this is what I am going to proclaim to you. The God who made the world and everything in it is the Lord of heaven and earth, and does not live in temples built by human hands. And he is not served by human hands, as if he needed anything. Rather, he himself gives everyone life and breath and everything else. From one man, he made all the nations, that they should inhabit the whole earth, and he marked out their appointed times in history and the boundaries of their lands. God did this so that they would seek him and perhaps reach out for him and find him, though he is not far from any one of us. For in him we live and move and have our being. As some of your own poets have said, we are his offspring. I wanted to share with you a couple of things that I noticed, and I hope that as you read with me, you paid attention to what caught your attention. One thing, Paul was in Athens and he was speaking to non-Christians, but he did a lot of observing before he ever opened his mouth. And when he spoke, he showed a sensitivity to who they were and what was important to them. As a Christian, I need to be sure that when I talk about God to someone else, I think about what's important to them and relate what I have to share to that. Pennsatucky shared her faith most likely in the way that it was demonstrated to her. And at some point, she figured out that did not help her, and it did not help anyone else. And it certainly didn't do God any good. Number 2. God is Lord of heaven and earth and does not live in temples built by human hands. You and I create space for specific things, but God is not limited by those places the way that we are. Something else to think about. And number 3, God gives everyone life and breath. All of us are his offspring. From one man, he made all nations, and he's not far from any one of us. That's encouraging news to me. I don't know about you. God is present. He is real. He is here and everywhere. He wants to be found by me. I understand that Orange is the New Black is not for everyone. There's plenty in the series to offend someone, and some of the images and themes may connect too closely with something you are or have faced in the past. But I encourage you to go and explore, asking for God to give you ears to hear and eyes to see what she wants you to hear and see. I watched a series called Schitt's Creek about wealthy white people and small town white people learning to see past their assumption-based prejudices, to see the value in each other. What prejudices do you have? And are you willing to move past them to see God and others more clearly? Will you be surprised by where you see God at work? He works and he lives and he moves and he breathes among all of us broken and damaged people. Sometimes it looks like Suzanne helping a Pennsatucky, God through the Holy Spirit moving through them. Sometimes it looks like a Tasty finding her voice. Sometimes it looks like God came and left as we get better, and then we slide back into old habits and patterns. And then sometimes we find him again. I'd like you to join me as we sing together another song sung by Danielle Brooks called Blessings. Imagine yourself as a blessing to others and not a hindrance as they feel their way toward God.